It's the 4th episode of X-Men 97, and did it finally Amber Heard up the bed? Let's find out.
The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
X-Men 97 is quickly becoming one of my favorite parts of the week. Of course, I love to stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but X-Men 97 gives me something to look forward to when I wake up on Wednesday mornings. Or should I say did? Okay, I'm gonna say does, because X-Men 97 is back with another episode, and somehow the momentum is still going strong. So this week you get a twofer. Not that kind of twofer, but you get 2 episodes for the price of 1. This week you get Motendo and Life Death, Part 1. Now, we'll talk about Life Death second because, well, that's how it goes in the episode. But this episode starts out at the X-Mansion. It picks up where last week's episode left off. The X-Men are all at home. Now, first off, folks, if you're looking for some negatives, here you go. There's no Cyclops. Wolverine says one line. You might not like where this is going to go, but you gotta watch the episode to realize this is one of the most fun parts of X-Men 97 so far, and it's all about Jubilee. Yeah, I know. I watched X-Men back in the day. I didn't like Jubilee either. She was annoying. Does a mall baby eat chili fries? I didn't even know what that meant as a kid. But as an adult, I've never really liked Jubilee outside of owning her action figures to complete the team. Yet somehow this episode about Jubilee's 18th birthday is awesome. Why? Because it brings back Mojo. So folks, let's just give you a quick synopsis of this one because you're going to want to watch it. It's very light in terms of depth or bigger meaning. Like if this was the first episode to drop, everyone would like it, but people would be like, but doesn't X-Men have deeper themes? Not this story with Jubilee, and that's exactly what you want. So this one takes place during her birthday, and all she wants to do is celebrate her birthday by going to the arcade with everyone. Jubilee is a big gamer. Well, a 1997 gamer. So anyway, Magneto gives her a talking to that we see Jubilee chastise in her bedroom with her new friend Roberto, the new mutant. Well, he's not really new, and he's not part of the New Mutants, but I digress. My point, is he a new? He might be. Never mind, I'm not going to get into that right now. I'm not pulling out the book. My point is, it's her birthday, she can't game, and all of a sudden she realizes that she has a new video game console on her dresser, a Motendo. She thought it was a gift from Rogue, because she mentioned there were going to be some surprises for this year's birthday. And well, all of a sudden, the biggest surprise happens. The Motendo comes to life. It wraps Roberto and Jubilee up in these tendrils, and it sends them to the digital world where they meet Mojo. Now, Mojo Vision is one of my favorite episodes of the original X-Men animated series. It's funny, it's got great callbacks, it's got a lot of action, it's fun. It's got I Dream of Jean, which is a fun little parody, and it's got, was it Mutant Vice? Now, if you know me very well, you know I love Miami Vice. So anytime you reference Crockett and Tubby, I'm going to be very happy. And well, X-Men did it back in the day. But now we have Motendo, which is a lot like Mojo Vision. We see that now Mojo has evolved from television into gaming. And that's the only commentary there really is on today's world. It feels like a commentary on the evolution of entertainment consumption. In 1993, because I think Mojo Vision's the first or second season, but my point is, back then when that show was on, the internet and gaming were around, but they were so much smaller. One of the characters talks about being embarrassed to be seen playing video games. And guess what? Back in the day, that was the case because video games were for nerds. The internet was for nerds. Everything that you're into today was for nerds, and it was looked down upon. Your cell phone was for nerds or the elite. Again, people had negative things to say. But I don't have a lot of negative things to say about this portion of said X-Men episode. We see that instead of Jubilee and Roberto going off to be in a TV show, they're going to be in a video game. Not just any video game, a 16-bit video game. But here is where the beauty lies in this episode. Again, somehow they know how to take shit from the past, pluck it, and make it seem cool in 2024. And now they gave us a continuation of the old X-Men arcade machine. Now folks, I love the X-Men arcade machine. It's up there with The Simpsons and what's the other Konami machine that I can't think of off the top of my head? But Turtles. All 3 of those machines, Turtles, X-Men, and Simpsons, were the 3 best arcade games in the 90s. I want to own an X-Men arcade machine. And I know you're saying, Jeff, you can go get one of those 1-ups. They rebranded it. You can get that game right now. I want a 6-player original X-Men Arcade to go in my basement. I know exactly how I'm going to set up my basement. Home theater, action figures, X-Men the arcade game. Hell, when I was living in California, I was this close to buying one because our apartment was big enough to necessitate another couch or an arcade machine. So I thought about getting an X-Men arcade machine because I love that game. And so this episode of X-Men 97 puts Jubilee and Roberto, I keep forgetting his mutant name. Is it Sunspot? We're going to call him Sunspot because I think that's what it is. But Jubilee and Sunspot are stuck in this video game, and this is where the artistry really shines. So the second they're pulled into this digital world, all of a sudden a Sentinel busts through the wall and rips out Jubilee, and then Roberto falls. But here is a nice little Easter egg that most people aren't going to get unless you're a denizen of the internet or you were there back in the day. But all of a sudden, as she lands on the ground, Sunspot hits a car and bounces off of it. Not a big deal, it's just a fucking car. But it's not just any car, it's the car from Street Fighter 2. So they're putting little bitty video game Easter eggs like that in this show already. And again, I was very impressed. So you meet Mojo, you see that Jubilee and Sunspot have to fight their way out of this game for survival. It's just like Mojo Vision. It's just like these other X-Men stories, and that's where the beauty of this one is. It's not a deep episode, it's just action. Like some episodes of the old show were, and some issues of the comic book are. Not everything is this great struggle, another, step for mutant acceptance. Sometimes the X-Men just have to be superheroes and do cool shit. And Mojo is a lot like Arcade, where you would have these random one-off stories where the X-Men would go fight Arcade in these giant death traps. They'd be inside pinball machines, they'd do all this crazy shit, and then they'd go off and fight Magneto and deal with other bigger issues. Much like Mojo. You go in, Mojo's insane, Mojo's crazy, he's a nut bar essentially. He's not that extreme by today's standards though, that's the weird part. Back in the day he felt like Howard Stern on crack, Rush Limbaugh drinking Jolt soda, like something like that. But now, Mojo just feels like a less intense version of a lot of people you watch on the internet. So I don't know if that's a commentary on them. If it is, it's funny, but if it's not, well, it just happened coincidentally. So we see Jubilee and Sunspot in the arcade game, and all of a sudden as Jubilee is being attacked by... Oh, here's the beauty of it. They don't just go into the arcade game, they go to different levels of the arcade game. So they fight in the city like at the beginning, then they go to the Savage Land where we see Jubilee in 16-bit form fight Sauron. And as Sauron is draining her energy and killing her, her life bar instantly goes up. And all of a sudden we're like, who did it? So here's what it is. This game is based off Jubilee's memory. Now we see the Savage Land, we see Jubilee's memories from previous X-Men episodes back in the day, and then we see her run into herself. She runs into an older version. So this episode borrows a little bit from Tron, but then again, what doesn't if you do the digital story? And well, we have Jubilee meet old Jubilee, but it's not really an old woman version. What it is Mojo created a digital version of Jubilee to test the game. So Jubilee runs into her beta testing version of herself, and it's kind of cool. We have Jubilee talk to digital Jubilee, then Mojo rips his way out of an X-Men arcade machine, it's branded and everything, and he fights them, and they have a big fight, and Sunspot and Jubilee win. They beat Mojo, they get sent back to the real world, and that's pretty much it for their story. Now, we'll talk about Life Death in just a moment, but I can't stress enough how much fun this was. This is a lot like Kong vs. Godzilla. Now, unlike that movie, you don't really need to shut off your brain. What you should be doing is paying extra close attention to this episode, because you may not be getting a big social talking to about a lot of these things, but what you are getting is a really fun trip down memory lane and a celebration of the modern era and the classic era and video games. It's just a lot of fun to watch. I mean, there's 16-bit music, the little cartridge in the Motendo, which is essentially a Sega Genesis and a Japanese Super Nintendo had a baby. Like, the cartridge that's in that system looks like the X-Men Sega Genesis game. Little callbacks like that really mean a lot. There's even a nice little Days of Future Past nod, and you can see the full X poster, the one that's on the comic book cover, and I think they even have Quicksilver and Wanda Maximoff on it now, so maybe it's skewing, maybe it's changing, whatever's going on. It's cool to see that Quicksilver and Wanda are mutants, not only Avengers characters. I like how in the animated world of Marvel, we're finally broadening that. I'd say throw the MCU out. It's over. It's done. Just give us a really in-depth animated world. Because universally, anime is accepted. Adults watch anime as much as kids do. That's not a judgment or an indictment of your character or your tastes. But what it is that animation is ubiquitous. It doesn't matter what age you are, you will watch an animated show, an animated feature. Animated features win awards. Animation is a wonderful art form, and I'm so glad that this show takes advantage of that, but I think Marvel's leaving money on the table by not expanding a connected animated universe, because you can get all the iconic versions of characters, you can get the suits, you can get everything, you can have all of the characters cross over, you can do shit that you can't do in film. I think the film era of the superhero is over. You need to move to live action television, but there's not a big enough budget to produce that kind of stuff on a weekly basis, so go back to animation, where things are fun and colorful and they look nice. That's a long way of saying this cartoon is fun to watch, it's visually stimulating, it had everything you wanted out of this. It was basic, but that's the point. It's not deep X-Men, and it's not meant to be. It goes to show you that not every issue of the X-Men needs to be Claremont digging deep. Sometimes you can have fun, and that's what this is. It is a nice change of pace from the other episodes to then jump into a deeper, headier storyline that we're about to go into in just a moment. Stealing Solo asks the greatest what-if question of all time. What if a group of disgruntled Star Wars fans kidnap Harrison Ford and force him to remake Star Wars in their basement? That, and a whole lot more, is answered in Stealing Solo, a Captain's Parody. Stealing Solo has been called laugh out loud funny and the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs, and it's available now for a limited time only. Go to stealingsolo.com, which is powered by Shopify, so you get the reward-winning safety and security, and get yourselves a copy today. Once we sell through this limited backstock, I'm going back to the drawing board to bring you the sequel, which parodies Luke Skywalker's fall from grace, and finally the closing chapter, which I can't wait to get to, Frankenfisher, the Bride of Solo. And yes, it's exactly what you think it is. So folks, the only way to get that is go to stealingsolo.com right now, get yourselves a copy, and enjoy the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs. But before we go, I want to say a few more things about Motendo. Well, really just one last thing. Mojo's plot is essentially Batman Forever. He wants to put his Motendos in every household, in every dimension, and steal brain energy. And that is literally the premise of Batman Forever. That is the Riddler's subplot. I can't ding it that hard, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention just in case. Now, with that being said, I liked this episode, clearly. Is it the best one so far? The fact that they made Jubilee awesome and Sunspot and her kissed at the end, and it was a really nice story where it didn't feel like they were cutting things out or trying to add things in that don't fit. It was just very much what you would expect from X-Men. Whoever the fuck wrote this show has read X-Men comics, and that's nice. Because I know everyone on the internet is screaming out about, oh, they ruined our characters, but they haven't ruined a single character yet. You might say Morph is annoying, but Morph sucked and should have stayed dead, but that's a topic for another day. Let's talk about Life Death Part 1. So I've seen a lot of criticisms online of people complaining about Storm. What have you done to Storm? Our character, our queen, she's done. Guys, girls, read an X-Men comic book because Storm loses her powers. This happens. This isn't new. This is not disrespecting the legacy of Storm. This is the shit that happened. It just didn't happen in any other comic book or movie yet. So that is why it seems different and weird. You have to remember, these X-Men characters have to be published every 28 days, and they've been published every 28 days regularly since 1975. You see, back in the day, the X-Men was not a popular comic book. In the age of Spider-Man and the Avengers and the Incredible Hulk and the Fantastic Four and Captain America and Iron Man, the X-Men were at the fucking bottom. That book was canceled. It went into reprints with new covers. It took until 1975 to relaunch the title as giant-size X-Men #1, where you introduced Storm and Wolverine, and I think Colossus is on that team, and Thunderbird, right? He was in this week's episode as well. Long story short, the X-Men have been around. They've told a lot of stories that have never been adapted. This is one of them. So I have the Life Death comic book. It's not my absolute favorite, but it is a seminal story in learning who Storm is as a character, as a woman, which is so refreshing in today's day and age. They'll tell you stories about the broader scale of humanity and how the individual is important or whatever that bullshit is, but they never talk about what makes the individual complex, the feelings, the emotions, the desires, more than just, I'm a superhero and I need to represent X, Y, and Z because the audience wants it or this writer's a dick. Like, no. There's way more depth to that. And thankfully this episode, well, at least this half of the episode, features Storm in a vulnerable position. We see her and Forge creating a relationship, essentially. So Storm lost her powers, last week or the week before that, and so she goes off and she meets Forge. Forge is claiming to be a friend of Charles Xavier, and if you don't know who Forge is, well, hold on a second. So this is Forge, and I didn't realize I actually owned a Forge action figure, so I was surprised to see that. Forge and Storm, they have this relationship. He's trying to bring her powers back, they talk at dinner, you learn a lot about Forge. Now, if you don't know Forge, he's a mutant that can fix anything. He talks about how his brain makes these connections, and they bring characters, and they bring these things together and create new technology. It's cool. I guess I liked Forge enough to buy his toy, even though I didn't realize I had it. My point being, though, we're introducing Forge. Forge is cool. I like him in the book. Storm is great as well. And so we're watching them learn about each other. Now, the one thing this cartoon doesn't do, which other adaptations, and I know you're thinking, Jeff, you just mentioned how the story's never been adapted, but there's this really wonderful, dare I say, brilliant X-Men, the audio book, the audio drama. It's a fully acted X-Men story. And what it does is it ties every era of X-Men into one condensed timeline. So it uses like the X-Men theme that we all know and love. It kind of modernizes the X-Men. So, the team is the classic team, but they talk about how you don't bring your cell phone on the job. They can track you. They do these little bitty things that are awesome. And it's a great show. Don't think of it as a fan production that's lesser quality. This is as good as any X-Men thing that's been put out. It's outside of the Kitty Pryde voice, you're never going to even think about the other X-Men adaptations. And some of the voices in that show are better than what is in this show. And one thing that adaptation did, the audio dramas, beyond adapting all these great X stories, is they did adapt Life Death. And so the Forge-Storm relationship goes a lot deeper than it has in the cartoon so far, and I don't know if they're actually going to show that, because the way it works in the cartoon, they have dinner, they talk, they learn about each other. Storm finds out that Forge has at one point worked on the technology of the mutant restraint collars, but then he tries to explain himself that once he found out what the government was doing, he stepped away. She doesn't believe it, she runs out, drama happens, and I'll get to that in a moment. In the comic book, it's deeper. They have sex, they build a relationship, there's all kinds of humanity that goes on between the two characters, and they form this bond. Of course, this is on Disney Plus, you can't really put that in there, and I don't want it. I don't need to see that, I don't even need to hear about it. It's a cartoon, you give me the highlights, you give me the fun, high-octane energy. This is supposed to be a once-a-week travel into the world of the X-Men, where you're whisked off with your favorite characters. And so far, out of the last 4 weeks, or 3 and 4 episodes, it has been that. And this episode is no different. So where the episode veers off from the comic book is we see Storm, try to use her powers. We see Storm have a breakdown. She runs off, and she's out there trying to get away from Forge. And then all of a sudden, she's kind of pulled back into the house, and this creature appears. He's like a bird thing, and he comes into the house and he bites Forge and he injects him with some kind of virus. You see him get bit here, and then all of a sudden, it just travels and spreads, and then the creature hugs Storm and takes her to an alternate dimension or reality, and then the episode ends. So that's it. That's where we're left, on a cliffhanger. And that's cool, because if this entire episode would have tried to be Life Death, it would have been boring as shit. Look, not all iconic stories are action-packed and fun. Some iconic stories are about the humanity between two characters, and Life Death is that story right here. It's a very special issue of the X-Men. And so, it's nice to see that the creators were self-aware of what this show should be, and self-aware of what that story is, and not really make it at the forefront. Now, I'm not saying I advocate episodes being half and half, because it makes it feel like the old Marvel Superhero Hour, or it doesn't feel like an animated series. It feels like vignettes trying to just capitalize on an episode count. That's not what I want out of X-Men. I wanted it to feel like the never-ending saga of a set of superheroes that I genuinely like. So I get that. I'm getting that each and every week, and thankfully even the more somber parts of the X-Men have been excised, and I'm really enjoying them. So overall, folks, this is another good week of X-Men 97. Like most of you, I was concerned. I grew up with the X-Men. I thought they're going to ruin the childhood. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. Look, the argument of we need to move past the same shit over and over again, I champion that argument. I make it myself all the time. So with that being said, I do enjoy that this show doesn't suck. That's my joking way of saying I enjoy the show, and I think you'll enjoy it too if you're an X-Men fan. Not really just a fan of the cartoon. You're going to have to know a little more about the X-Men to appreciate all of the things, not to understand it. Anybody coming in off the streets can watch this show. And if you like it based on that alone, well, that's a whole different argument to make. But if you're like me, a long-term X-Men fan, a die-hard X-Men fan who's got, the characters over here, double X-Men shelves. I got more X-Men figures. Like, I don't have Rogue. Why? Because I have 2 Rogues. One's going to stay in the box forever, and one's an opener because they're different releases. So what I'm getting at is I really do like X-Men. All the little Easter eggs are never lost on me, but they're not enough for me to overlook story beats, and I don't have to overlook story beats. That's weird. Now, I know people get angry when you review something from Marvel or Disney and you give it a positive slant. Oh, you're a shill. Oh, you're woke. Oh, you're this. No, not at all. I just watched a show, and unlike a lot of people that want to put things on a show each and every week that aren't there, I'm not gonna act like those things are there to get people to click and be outraged. It's a fun time. This is the only show in the history of the channel that I have stayed checked in with and done each and every review. I gave up on Secret Invasion after 1 episode. I don't buy everything Marvel puts out. I buy very little that Marvel puts out, but I do and have always liked the X-Men. So it's nice that the X-Men are finally getting their fair shake. This isn't the situation like it was back in the day where Marvel cut all X-Men merchandise because, 20th Century Fox would get a cut. No, we're back celebrating classic X-Men, Jim Lee costumes, old theme song. It's for people my age that really want to relive the past. But I gotta say, folks, it's a little deeper than that, and I'm really happy with it. So, folks, this is a weird week for the channel. We will be back next week with our X-Men review. It might be a little later because a week from today, I will be over the Side Scroller podcast hanging out with them. So make sure you join us over there on their channel. But this weekend, I'm going to WrestleMania. Actually, I'm leaving today for WrestleMania. So, wearing the Rock shirt, I am in WrestleMania mode. Why am I telling you guys that? Be on the lookout for our streams from WrestleMania. I go each and every year since 2006, minus the pandemic. So if you see us there, come hang out, look for the shirt, and let's have a beer. But folks, if you like what we do, join our Patreon. It's only a couple bucks a month, and this month, well, we've given you quite a bit this year already. We've given you The Crow. We've given you Eurotrip. We've given you 2 WWE events. All things you can listen to, but if you're on the video tier, you can watch along with us. And we know you like to watch that kind of stuff with us, so watch along with us, hear our commentary, get involved, give us our recommendations, be on the show. You ever watch the podcast and go, God, I'd love to talk to Kendo about Woodrow Wilson? Well, guess what? If you're a patron at the highest tier, you can be on the show. Just ask. Nobody ever asks, so that's why we don't do it. But we're just waiting on a patron. So folks, if you want to be involved with the show and all that fun stuff, you know what to do. But be on the lookout for Wokebusters, folks. This is the comic book event of 2024. I'm letting you guys know right now, I had to push it back a few weeks because a few things weren't ready. I'm a man who has an eye for detail, and I needed to make sure that Wokebusters had specific things done before I could even pre-promote it for you guys. The book's done, the art's done on my end, everything's done like that. We had a little promotional thing that I wanted to put together. I'm still piecing together. We have a pre-teaser trailer done by another team, just as a, something small. So you might see some Wokebusters stuff showing up on social media. That's not even the official release. Like, we are treating this like a movie because Wokebusters is bigger than a movie. It's bigger than any movie this year, and there's a Ghostbusters movie out this year. So keep that in mind when thinking about Wokebusters. But folks, the end of April, we will have the Kickstarter launch. We'll take care of all of that stuff, and we'll have a lot of fun. You haven't missed out. Do not worry. I've been talking about this book for a long time because it's taken a long time to make, and now it's done. It's on its way to you, and folks, I know you're going to love it. I love comics. I want to tell you great stories that aren't full of garbage, and Wokebusters is not. It's a great story that everybody will enjoy because it's funny, and comedy is the great unifier. So folks, go to Wokebusters, have a laugh, become a Wokebuster yourself. But be on the lookout for the information on each and every video. Folks, I can't wait. I keep saying it. I'm so excited. I love comics. This shit, these aren't just toys. They're physical representations of things I like. You'll see a lot of comic book characters and a lot of things from my past. And I'm as passionate about my own work as I am anything here. 10 times more passionate about my own stuff because I want to create stuff that stands along with that and above that kind of stuff. So folks, buy into what we're doing. We may not have a catchy name. We may not have a logo yet. But we've already had Stealing Solo to prove exactly what I can do. And Wokebusters is better than that in every single way. And what's going to come after that? I know, but you don't. But I'll give you a hint. Look at the screen. Look at what's behind me. The next comic book will be about something that you see in your frame, but I won't tell you until then. So folks, thank you for watching. I love doing this, and it's been a lot of fun in 2024, and it keeps getting better. So I'll be back next time. I'm going to WrestleMania. I hope The Rock whoops that candy ass twice. But until then, folks, be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other.